The council chamber stretched wide like a metal cave, filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Captain Doyen stood in the center of it all, feeling very small. His boots clicked against the smooth floor as he walked to the presentation platform. Behind him, Lieutenant Hana carried a standard Earth infantry rifle, the kind soldiers had used for decades. It looked plain and simple next to all the glowing technology around them. Doyen cleared his throat. Honored council members, I present Earth's standard military equipment for your review. The holographic display lit up behind him, showing the rifle in detail. It was made of steel and polymer, fired metal bullets using chemical propellant, and had a long blade attached to the front, a bayonet, the same basic design humans had used for centuries. A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Doyen a moment to realize it was laughter. This is a joke, yes? The voice came from Ambassador Vraksha, a reptilian creature with golden scales and 4 arms. She leaned forward in her floating chair, her eyes gleaming with amusement. You present weapons from your primitive past as if they are suitable for modern warfare? Hana's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Doyen had ordered her to stay quiet no matter what happened. These are our current standard issue weapons, Doyen said calmly. They are reliable, easy to maintain, and effective in all environments. Effective? Another voice, this one like chiming crystals. The Quillari representative stood, its translucent body reflecting rainbow colors under the chamber lights. You still use kinetic projectiles. You still use chemical reactions. Most disturbing of all, you still train soldiers to stab enemies with metal blades. This is not war. This is butchery. More laughter. Doyen felt heat rising in his chest but kept his face neutral. He had expected this. Earth's military advisors had warned him that the galactic powers viewed human warfare as barbaric. Our methods work, Doyen said. Against other humans, perhaps. Vraksha waved one of her hands dismissively. But you wish to join the Interstellar Defense Coalition. You wish to fight beside civilized species against real threats. How will your little metal sticks help when facing plasma weapons? When facing quantum disruptors? When facing enemies who attack from orbit? We adapt, Hana said suddenly, breaking her silence. Doyen shot her a warning glance, but she continued. Humans have always adapted. We fight at whatever range necessary. How quaint. The Quillari's voice dripped with condescension. The young human speaks of adaptation while carrying weapons from her species' infancy. Tell me, child, have you ever seen what a plasma rifle can do? It can burn through reinforced armor at 3,000 meters. Your little bullet cannot even fly that far. No, Hana admitted. But I can run 3,000 meters. And when I get there, my bayonet still works. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then more laughter, louder than before. Doyen noticed movement near the council's human liaison section. Minho sat there, a human who had worked with the galactic community for 5 years. He wore alien-style robes and carried no weapons. His face showed clear discomfort as he watched the proceedings. When their eyes met, Minho looked away. Perhaps we should allow Earth to demonstrate these weapons, suggested a small, furry delegate from a world Doyen couldn't remember the name of. No need, Vraksha said. We have seen enough. Earth may join the coalition, but we must be realistic about their capabilities. She turned to face Doyen directly. Captain, your people will be assigned to rear guard positions, supply protection, civilian evacuation, tasks suitable for developing military forces. The word stung worse than any insult. Rear guard duty. They were being treated like children, given safe jobs while the real soldiers fought. We came here to fight, Doyen said, his voice hard. And you will, when you are ready, when you have proper weapons. Vraksha's tone suggested this would never happen. The coalition cannot risk putting soldiers with obsolete equipment on the front lines. You would die. Worse, you would endanger those around you. Our equipment is not obsolete, Captain. The Quillari moved closer, its crystalline form refracting light across Doyen's face. I mean no disrespect to your species. You are young. You have much to learn. In 10,000 years, perhaps you will understand warfare as we do. Perhaps you will abandon these primitive tools and embrace true military science. Until then, accept your place with grace. Doyen wanted to argue, wanted to demand a fair chance, wanted to show them what human soldiers could do. But he had his orders. Earth needed the Coalition's technology, their trade, their protection from threats humanity couldn't yet face alone. So he nodded. We accept the Council's decision. Excellent. Vraksha smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Welcome to the Interstellar Defense Coalition, Captain Doyen. May your weapons never need to leave their storage. The meeting ended. Delegates filed out, some still chuckling about the primitive humans and their metal sticks. Doyen and Hana stood alone on the platform, the hologram of their rifle still glowing behind them. Captain, Hana said quietly, they're wrong. Maybe. No, not maybe. They're wrong. I've trained with these weapons my whole career. I've trained with the bayonet since I was 12 years old. There's nothing obsolete about knowing how to fight when everything else fails. Doyen looked at the rifle in her hands. His grandfather had carried one almost exactly like it. His father, too. 3 generations of soldiers, all using similar tools, all adapting them to new challenges. The design changed slowly because it worked. Because humans understood something about warfare that perhaps these advanced species had forgotten. Fighting wasn't just about range and power. It was about will. It was about the soldier behind the weapon. Keep that thought, Doyen said. We're going to need it. They walked toward the exit. Minho waited for them in the corridor outside, his face troubled. Captain Doyen, He stopped, struggling with words. I'm sorry. I should have prepared you better. Should have warned you how they would react. You did warn us, Doyen said. We just hoped they'd be more open-minded. They can't be. They've fought wars the same way for thousands of years. Long range, high technology, clean and distant. They don't understand fighting that requires getting close. Minho glanced around, making sure they were alone. But I've read the reports. The classified ones. There are enemies out there that don't fight clean, that don't stay at range, and the Coalition has been losing ground against them. What enemies? Hana asked. I can't say, but Minho met Doyen's eyes. Keep your bayonets sharp, Captain. You might need them sooner than the Council thinks. He walked away, leaving Doyen and Hana standing in the empty corridor. What do you think he meant? Hana asked. Doyen looked at the rifle in her hands, at the bayonet gleaming under the corridor lights. It was simple. It was old. It was human. I think he means we should be ready, Doyen said. The galaxy is about to learn something about Earth. What's that? That obsolete is just another word for proven. They walked back to their ship, back to tell their soldiers about the Council's decision. Rear guard duty, safe positions, no real combat expected. Doyen didn't believe it for a second. The universe had a way of testing everyone eventually, and when it tested humanity, they would be ready, with or without the Council's approval. 3 months had passed since the Council meeting, and Captain Doyen stood watching the sunrise on Threshold 7. The mining colony sat on the edge of Coalition space, far from any real danger, far from any real action, exactly where the Council wanted Earth's soldiers. Behind him, the barracks came alive with morning sounds. His company, 120 human soldiers, prepared for another day of guard duty and patrols, protecting miners, checking supply shipments, playing soldier while the real military fought real wars. Morning, Captain. Sergeant G1 approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Doyen. The Vraxian commander wants to see you at 0800. Something about the training exercise. Doyen sighed. Let me guess. They want us to use simulation weapons again. Probably. Can't have the primitive humans using real bullets around civilized species. G1's voice carried bitter sarcasm. She was the company's weapons specialist, trained in every aspect of infantry combat, especially bayonet fighting. The aliens found this particularly amusing. We follow orders, Sergeant. Yes, sir. But it's hard to follow orders from people who think we're children playing with toys. Down in the exercise yard, alien soldiers ran drills with their plasma rifles. The weapons hummed and glowed, firing bolts of superheated energy at distant targets. Impressive, deadly at range. But Doyen noticed something. The aliens never got close to their targets, never trained for close combat, never practiced what to do if an enemy reached them. Private Yunji jogged past, returning from her morning run. She stopped when she saw Doyen and Jiwon. Captain, permission to speak freely? Go ahead. The Quillari soldiers were laughing at Corporal Taehyun yesterday. He was practicing bayonet drills, and they said he looked like he was dancing, called it a performance art. Yunji's jaw was tight with anger. Sir, they don't understand. My family has practiced martial arts for 8 generations. There's nothing funny about learning to fight with your whole body, not just pointing a weapon and pulling a trigger. I know, Private. Do you, sir? Because sometimes I wonder if we're wasting our time here. Maybe the council is right. Maybe we are obsolete. Doyen set down his coffee cup. Yunji, how many hours have you trained with your weapon? Thousands, sir. And in all that training, when have you needed it most? When things go wrong, sir. When the simple plan fails and you have to adapt. Exactly. These aliens have fought the same way for so long they've forgotten how to adapt. They've forgotten that most plans fail the moment combat starts. We haven't forgotten. That's not obsolete. That's wisdom. Yunji nodded slowly, some of the doubt leaving her eyes. She saluted and continued to the barracks. Good words, Captain, Jiwan said. Think you believe them? I have to, Sergeant, because if I don't, what are we doing here? The day continued like all the others. Doyen met with the Vraxian commander, who politely but firmly insisted that human soldiers use non-lethal training weapons during the joint exercise scheduled for next week. Couldn't risk accidents. Couldn't have primitive weapons near advanced equipment. Doyen agreed because he had no choice. Lieutenant Hana found him in the afternoon, her tablet showing patrol reports. Nothing interesting, no threats, no action. Captain, the soldiers are getting restless, she said. They joined the military to serve, not to babysit mining equipment. I know. Private Yunji asked for a transfer this morning. Wants to go back to Earth, train new recruits. Said at least there she'd feel useful. Denied. We stay together. When our chance comes, we need to be ready. What chance? Hana's frustration showed clearly. The council has buried us out here. We're not soldiers anymore, we're security guards. Before Doyen could answer, alarms screamed across the colony. Every screen in the command center lit up red. Automated voices announced in a dozen languages. Emergency. Emergency. Outer defense perimeter breached. All military personnel report to stations. Emergency. Doyen and Hana ran to the command center. Inside, chaos. Alien commanders shouted orders, while holographic displays showed something tearing through the outer defenses. What's happening? Doyen demanded. Commander Borum, the Vraxian in charge of colony defense, turned to him. Her golden scales had gone pale. The Skrull. They've broken through. A full swarm, maybe 5,000 strong. The Skrull? Doyen had heard of them. Insectoid warriors, fast and vicious. The Coalition had been fighting them for years on the frontier. They weren't supposed to reach this far into our space. Borum's 4 hands moved frantically across controls. Our long-range sensors should have detected them days ago, but they moved through the asteroid field, used it as cover. What do you need from my company? Borum glanced at him, then away. Nothing, Captain. This is military action. You're assigned to civilian evacuation. Get the miners to the shelters. Protect the non-combatants. Leave the fighting to us. The words stung, but Doyen understood the logic. His soldiers had trained for this, but the Council's orders were clear. Earth forces were rear guard only. Understood. We'll secure the civilian sectors. Good. We're deploying to the outer sectors now. Our plasma rifles will cut them down before they reach the main colony. This will be over in hours. Borum and her officers left, moving with confident efficiency. They had better weapons, better armor, better technology. The Skrull didn't stand a chance. Doyen gathered his company, 120 soldiers armed with their obsolete rifles and sharp bayonets, assigned to protect civilians while the real soldiers fought the real battle. You heard the orders, Doyen said. We evacuate miners, secure the shelters, and wait for the all-clear. Questions? Corporal Taehyun raised his hand. Captain, my grandfather fought in the last war. He told me stories about times when the plan failed, when the advanced equipment stopped working, when soldiers had to rely on basic skills to survive. What's your point, Corporal? He said the smart soldier always keeps his bayonet sharp, because you never know when you'll need it. Around the room, soldiers checked their weapons. The ritual was automatic. Magazines seated properly, action smooth, and yes, bayonet sharp. Wise man, your grandfather, Doyen said. Let's hope we don't need to test his advice. Now move out. Get those civilians to safety. The company dispersed to their assignments. Doyen walked with Hana toward the civilian sectors where frightened miners gathered, looking for someone to tell them everything would be fine. An explosion rocked the colony. Then another. The lights flickered. Doyen's radio crackled. It was Minho, the human liaison. His voice carried urgency. "Captain, I need to tell you something about the Skrull." "Something the Council doesn't advertise. Go ahead." "They don't fight at range. They're fast. Too fast for long-range targeting. They get close inside the effective range of plasma weapons, and they tear through shields like paper. The aliens' weapons are perfect for distance combat, but useless in close quarters." Doyen finished. His blood ran cold. "The defensive line won't hold, Captain. When it breaks, the Skrull will flood into the colony, into the tight corridors and small rooms where plasma rifles can't track fast enough, where shields don't have space to deploy properly. More explosions. Closer now. How long do we have?" Doyen asked. "Based on previous battles? Maybe 6 hours before the line collapses completely." Doyen looked at Hana. She had heard everything, her face grim. "Captain," she said quietly, "maybe obsolete weapons aren't so useless after all. Maybe not." Doyen keyed his radio to the company frequency. "All units, status update. The defensive situation may deteriorate rapidly. When evacuating civilians, maintain weapons ready. Stay in pairs. Watch the corners." Acknowledgements came back. His soldiers understood. They were being told to prepare for combat without being ordered to prepare for combat. Hours passed. The sounds of battle grew louder. Through it all, Doyen's company moved civilians, secured shelters, and waited. The alien commanders sent no updates. They were too busy fighting. Then, as Minho predicted, the line broke. The radio exploded with panicked alien voices. Retreat orders. Casualty reports. Calls for reinforcement that couldn't come. "All human units," Doyen broadcast. "The front has collapsed. Skrull warriors are entering the colony. Hold your positions. Protect the civilians. And remember your training." He heard Sergeant G1's voice, steady and calm. "Fixed bayonets, people. Like we practiced." Throughout the colony, 120 soldiers attached long blades to their rifles, the simple, obsolete weapons that the galaxy had laughed at. Doyen checked his own bayonet. Sharp, ready. "Here they come," Hana said, pointing down the corridor. Shadows moved in the darkness, fast, chittering, hungry. The first Skrull warrior exploded into the corridor like a nightmare given form. 8 feet tall, covered in black chitin armor with blade-like limbs that could cut through steel. Its compound eyes reflected the emergency lights as it spotted Doyen and Hana. It charged. Doyen raised his rifle and fired 3 controlled bursts. The bullets punched through the creature's chest armor. It stumbled but kept coming. He fired again, aiming for the head. The Skrull dropped 5 feet from him, its momentum carrying it forward until it slid to a stop at his boots. "They can die," Hana said, her voice steady despite the fear Doyen could see in her eyes. "Everything can die," Doyen replied. "Question is whether we can kill them fast enough." More Skrull poured into the corridor, dozens of them moving with terrifying speed. Behind Doyen, civilian miners screamed and ran deeper into the shelter. His job was to hold this entrance, to give them time to seal the inner doors. He and Hana fired together, the crack of their rifles echoing off metal walls. The old-fashioned bullets did their job. Skrull warriors fell, bodies piling up in the narrow space. But more kept coming, reloading. Hana shouted. A Skrull used that moment to leap forward, its bladed limb swinging toward her head. Doyen stepped in, bringing his rifle up horizontally. The bayonet caught the creature's limb, deflecting it. Then he twisted, rotated his weapon, and drove the blade into the warrior's throat. It made a gurgling sound and collapsed. "Thanks," Hana said, her new magazine locked in. "Don't mention it. Just keep shooting." Down the corridor, he could hear other fights. His soldiers scattered throughout the colony, facing the same horror. Obsolete weapons against an enemy that moved too fast for the galaxy's advanced technology. His radio crackled with voices. Corridor 7B were holding. 3 down, no casualties. That was Corporal Taehyun. Shelter entrance 12 secure. 5 Skrull killed. Private Yunji's voice calm and professional. Need support at the medical bay. They're coming through the ceiling. Sergeant Ji-won, urgent but not panicked. Doyen couldn't help everyone. He had to trust his soldiers to fight their own battles. Trust their training. Trust the obsolete weapons the galaxy had mocked. "Captain," Hana pointed. The Skrull had stopped charging. They gathered at the far end of the corridor, chittering to each other in their alien language. Intelligent. They were learning that the narrow space favored the humans. They're adapting, Doyen said. We need to— The ceiling exploded. Skrull warriors dropped down behind them, cutting off their retreat. 4 of them, between Doyen and the shelter door, trapped. Back to back. Doyen ordered. He and Hana stood together, rifles ready. The Skrull in front, the Skrull behind. No room to maneuver. No place to run. This was it. This was where they proved the galaxy wrong or died trying. The creatures attacked from both sides at once. Doyen fired at the ones in front while Hana covered their rear. The noise was deafening. Bullets, screams, the clatter of chitin on metal. A blade sliced past Doyen's head so close he felt the wind. He ducked, spun, and thrust his bayonet up into the creature's abdomen. It shrieked and fell. Another took its place immediately. They just kept coming. Hana grunted in pain. Doyen risked a glance. Her shoulder was bleeding, a deep cut from a Skrull blade. But she kept fighting, kept firing, kept standing. I'm fine, she said through gritted teeth. Just a scratch. It wasn't a scratch. But Doyen couldn't help her. Not yet. Not until these things were dead. He fired until his magazine ran empty. No time to reload. A Skrull lunged at him. Doyen brought his rifle up like a spear and drove the bayonet forward with all his strength. The blade punched through the warrior's armor and out its back. The creature thrashed, nearly pulling the rifle from his hands, but Doyen held on. He twisted the blade and pulled it free, and the Skrull collapsed. Behind him, Hana's rifle clicked empty too. She reversed it, using the stock as a club, smashing it into a warrior's head. The creature staggered. She followed up with a bayonet thrust to its throat. They fought with empty rifles and sharp steel. They fought the way humans had fought for thousands of years, before bullets, before gunpowder, when all a soldier had was a blade and the will to survive. And somehow, they won. The last Skrull fell. Doyen and Hana stood surrounded by bodies, gasping for breath. His arms burned from exertion. His uniform was covered in alien blood, but they were alive. Shelter door sealed, Captain, a voice called from inside. The civilians are safe. Doyen nodded, too tired to speak. He helped Hana sit down, examined her wound. Deep, but not life-threatening if they could get her to medical care. We did it, Hana said, almost surprised. Yeah, we did. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Doyen raised his rifle, ready to fight again despite his exhaustion. But it was Commander Borum, leading a group of Vraxian soldiers. They looked shocked, Captain Doyen. Borum stared at the dead Skrull. How did you— Your weapons. We couldn't stop them. They moved too fast. Got inside our firing range. Our plasma rifles couldn't track them in the corridors. Our shields couldn't deploy in time. We lost 30 soldiers in the first hour. We lost none, Doyen said, but several are wounded. Borum looked at the bodies again, at the simple human rifles with their attached blades, at the blood covering everything. You fought them hand to hand. We fought them however we needed to. That's what soldiers do. But you're using obsolete— Borum stopped. The word hung in the air, suddenly meaningless. I need your help, Captain. My forces are retreating to the inner sectors. The Skrull control the outer colony. We can't fight them in tight spaces. Our weapons aren't designed for it. Doyen looked at Hana. She nodded despite her pain. Sergeant G1. Doyen spoke into his radio. Status report. All sectors holding, Captain. 0 fatalities, 19 wounded, none critical. We've killed approximately 60 Skrull warriors. 60. His company of obsolete soldiers armed with primitive weapons had killed 60 of the creatures that routed the Coalition's advanced forces. Commander Borum, Doyen said carefully. You're asking for our help? Yes. The word seemed to cause her physical pain. I'm ordering my forces to the inner defensive line. But we need someone to hold the corridors. Someone who can fight these things up close. Someone whose weapons still work when the enemy is 5 feet away. You want the rear guard soldiers on the front line? I want soldiers who can do what my people cannot. Borum met his eyes. Please, Captain. We're dying out here. Doyen thought of the council chamber, the laughter, the condescension, the certainty that Earth had nothing valuable to offer. Part of him wanted to refuse, wanted to say that the advanced species should solve their own problems with their advanced weapons. But that wasn't why he became a soldier. We'll hold the corridors, Doyen said, but we do it our way. No simulation weapons, no safety protocols. We fight the way humans fight. Agreed. Anything you need. The first Skrull warrior exploded into the corridor like a nightmare given form. 8 feet tall, covered in black chitin armor with blade-like limbs that could cut through steel. Its compound eyes reflected the emergency lights as it spotted Doyon and Hana. It charged. Doyon raised his rifle and fired 3 controlled bursts. The bullets punched through the creature's chest armor. It stumbled but kept coming. He fired again, aiming for the head. The Skrull dropped 5 feet from him, its momentum carrying it forward until it slid to a stop at his boots. "They can die," Hana said, her voice steady despite the fear Doyon could see in her eyes. "Everything can die," Doyon replied. "Question is whether we can kill them fast enough." More Skrull poured into the corridor, dozens of them moving with terrifying speed. Behind Doyon, civilian miners screamed and ran deeper into the shelter. His job was to hold this entrance, to give them time to seal the inner doors. He and Hana fired together, the crack of their rifles echoing off metal walls. The old-fashioned bullets did their job. Skrull warriors fell, bodies piling up in the narrow space. But more kept coming, reloading. Hana shouted. A Skrull used that moment to leap forward, its bladed limb swinging toward her head. Doyon stepped in, bringing his rifle up horizontally. The bayonet caught the creature's limb, deflecting it. Then he twisted, rotated his weapon, and drove the blade into the warrior's throat. It made a gurgling sound and collapsed. "Thanks," Hana said, her new magazine locked in. "Don't mention it. Just keep shooting." Down the corridor, he could hear other fights. His soldiers scattered throughout the colony, facing the same horror. Obsolete weapons against an enemy that moved too fast for the galaxy's advanced technology. His radio crackled with voices. Corridor 7B were holding. 3 down, no casualties. That was Corporal Taehyun. Shelter entrance 12 secure, 5 Skrull killed. Private Yunji's voice calm and professional. Need support at the medical bay. They're coming through the ceiling. Sergeant Jiwon, urgent but not panicked. Doyon couldn't help everyone. He had to trust his soldiers to fight their own battles. Trust their training. Trust the obsolete weapons the galaxy had mocked. "Captain," Hana pointed. The Skrull had stopped charging. They gathered at the far end of the corridor, chittering to each other in their alien language. Intelligent. They were learning that the narrow space favored the humans. "They're adapting," Doyon said. "We need to—" The ceiling exploded. Skrull warriors dropped down behind them, cutting off their retreat. 4 of them, between Doyon and the shelter door, trapped. Back to back. Doyon ordered. He and Hana stood together, rifles ready. The Skrull in front, the Skrull behind. No room to maneuver. No place to run. This was it. This was where they proved the galaxy wrong or died trying. The creatures attacked from both sides at once. Doyon fired at the ones in front while Hana covered their rear. The noise was deafening. Bullets, screams, the clatter of chitin on metal. A blade sliced past Doyon's head so close he felt the wind. He ducked, spun, and thrust his bayonet up into the creature's abdomen. It shrieked and fell. Another took its place immediately. They just kept coming. Hana grunted in pain. Doyon risked a glance. Her shoulder was bleeding, a deep cut from a Skrull blade. But she kept fighting, kept firing, kept standing. "I'm fine," she said through gritted teeth. Just a scratch. It wasn't a scratch. But Doyon couldn't help her. Not yet. Not until these things were dead. He fired until his magazine ran empty. No time to reload. A Skrull lunged at him. Doyon brought his rifle up like a spear and drove the bayonet forward with all his strength. The blade punched through the warrior's armor and out its back. The creature thrashed, nearly pulling the rifle from his hands, but Doyon held on. He twisted the blade and pulled it free, and the Skrull collapsed. Behind him, Hana's rifle clicked empty too. She reversed it, using the stock as a club, smashing it into a warrior's head. The creature staggered. She followed up with a bayonet thrust to its throat. They fought with empty rifles and sharp steel. They fought the way humans had fought for thousands of years, before bullets, before gunpowder, when all a soldier had was a blade and the will to survive. And somehow, they won. The last Skrull fell. Doyon and Hana stood surrounded by bodies, gasping for breath. His arms burned from exertion. His uniform was covered in alien blood, but they were alive. "Shelter door sealed, Captain," a voice called from inside. "The civilians are safe." Doyon nodded, too tired to speak. He helped Hana sit down, examined her wound. Deep, but not life-threatening if they could get her to medical care. "We did it," Hana said, almost surprised. "Yeah, we did." Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Doyon raised his rifle. ready to fight again despite his exhaustion. But it was Commander Borum, leading a group of Vraxian soldiers. They looked shocked, Captain Doyen. Borum stared at the dead Skrull. How did you... Your weapons. We couldn't stop them. They moved too fast. Got inside our firing range. Our plasma rifles couldn't track them in the corridors. Our shields couldn't deploy in time. We lost 30 soldiers in the first hour. We lost none, Doyen said, but several are wounded. Borum looked at the bodies again, at the simple human rifles with their attached blades, at the blood covering everything. You fought them hand to hand. We fought them however we needed to. That's what soldiers do. But you're using obsolete. Borum stopped. The word hung in the air, suddenly meaningless. I need your help, Captain. My forces are retreating to the inner sectors. The Skrull control the outer colony. We can't fight them in tight spaces. Our weapons aren't designed for it. Doyen looked at Hana. She nodded despite her pain. Sergeant G1. Doyen spoke into his radio. Status report. All sectors holding, Captain. 0 fatalities, 19 wounded, none critical. We've killed approximately 60 Skrull warriors. 60. His company of obsolete soldiers armed with primitive weapons had killed 60 of the creatures that routed the Coalition's advanced forces. Commander Borum, Doyen said carefully. You're asking for our help? Yes. The word seemed to cause her physical pain. I'm ordering my forces to the inner defensive line. But we need someone to hold the corridors, someone who can fight these things up close, someone whose weapons still work when the enemy is 5 feet away. You want the rear guard soldiers on the front line? I want soldiers who can do what my people cannot. Borum met his eyes. Please, Captain. We're dying out here. Doyen thought of the council chamber, the laughter, the condescension, the certainty that Earth had nothing valuable to offer. Part of him wanted to refuse, wanted to say that the advanced species should solve their own problems with their advanced weapons. But that wasn't why he became a soldier. We'll hold the corridors, Doyen said, but we do it our way. No simulation weapons, no safety protocols. We fight the way humans fight. Agreed. Anything you need. 3 days into the battle, something impossible happened. Sergeant G1 stood in Corridor 14, her back against the wall, breathing hard. 6 dead Skrull lay at her feet. Her rifle was empty again. The 7th warrior charged at her, blades raised, ready to cut her in half. She brought her rifle up, bayonet forward, preparing for the thrust. The same move she had practiced 10,000 times in training. The same move that had saved her life a dozen times already during this nightmare. But this time her bayonet glowed, a faint blue light, like electricity running through the metal. G1 almost dropped her weapon in surprise. But training took over. She completed the thrust, driving the glowing blade into the Skrull's chest. The creature shrieked, a sound different from before. Not just pain, but something else. Confusion? Fear? It fell, twitching, and the glow faded from her bayonet. Did you see that? Private Yunji stood nearby, her own rifle ready. Your blade. It was glowing. I saw it. I don't know what... There, look. Yunji pointed down the corridor where Corporal Taehyun fought 2 Skrull warriors. His bayonet flickered with the same blue light as he parried and thrust. The creatures seemed slower when near the glow, their movements less coordinated. Word spread quickly through the human forces. Bayonets glowing during combat. Not all of them, not all the time. But enough to be noticed. Enough to be real. Captain Doyen saw it himself an hour later. He was helping defend the power core chamber when 3 Skrull broke through the barricade. He fought them with rifle fire and bayonet work, moving on instinct and training. During the fight, his blade began to emit that same blue glow. The light seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. The Skrull warriors recoiled from it. Not much, just a slight hesitation. But in combat, a hesitation meant death. Doyen killed all 3, his glowing bayonet cutting through their armor easier than before. When the fight ended, the glow faded. His weapon looked normal again, just plain steel. Captain, we need to figure this out. Lieutenant Hana had her arm in a sling from her earlier wound, but she refused to leave the fight. This isn't normal. Steel doesn't glow. There's no power source in these weapons. Agreed. Get me someone who understands science. I need answers. 2 hours later, Dr. Soyon arrived. She was a xenobiologist, one of the few human scientists working in the Coalition. She had been studying alien life forms in another part of the colony when the attack began. Now she stood in the command center, examining 3 bayonets that soldiers swore had glowed during combat. "Fascinating," she muttered, running scanning equipment over the blades. "The steel composition is standard Earth military grade. Iron, carbon, small amounts of other elements. Nothing unusual except..." "Except what?" Doyen asked. "There are trace amounts of resonite in the steel. Very small, less than 1%. Most species would never notice it. Most would consider it an impurity. What's resonite? A rare element. Most advanced species stopped using it millions of years ago because it's difficult to work with, interferes with energy weapons and electronic equipment, but it has interesting properties." Soyeon pulled up data on her tablet. "It responds to certain neurological patterns, specifically the kind of brain activity that occurs during high-stress combat situations." "You're saying our brains make the bayonets glow?" "In simple terms, yes. The resonite in the steel reacts to human neurological output during intense fighting. It creates a field effect, not strong but measurable." She showed him readings from her scanner. "And look at this. The field disrupts Skrull neural clusters. Their nervous system is partially distributed throughout their bodies. This field interferes with that distribution, slowing their reactions." Doyen stared at his bayonet. "So our obsolete weapons have an advantage against these things that your advanced sensors didn't detect?" "The galaxy abandoned resonite-rich materials thousands of years ago. We use synthetic compounds now, engineered for specific purposes. We forgot that natural materials can have unexpected properties." Soyeon's voice carried a mix of excitement and shame. "Your obsolete steel is actually perfect for fighting Skrull warriors. Not because it's better technology, but because it's a material we stopped using." The implications hit Doyen hard. The galaxy's most advanced species, with their plasma rifles and quantum shields, had been defeated by an enemy their own forgotten materials could counter. Meanwhile, Earth's simple steel bayonets made the way humans had made them for centuries worked perfectly. "Does the Coalition know about this?" he asked. "I'm sending them my data now. But Captain, you need to understand. The Council won't like this. It suggests they've been wrong about human weapons. Wrong about what makes something obsolete. Let them be unhappy. Right now, I need to know if we can make the glow stronger, more reliable." Soyeon shook her head. "I don't think so. It requires genuine combat stress. The neurological patterns during training or simulation are different. The resonite only responds to real danger, real fear, real determination to survive. You can't fake that. So it only works when we need it most." "Exactly." Doyen gathered his officers and explained what Soyeon had discovered. Sergeant Jiwon listened intently, then looked at her bayonet with new respect. "My blade glows brighter than most," she said. "I've noticed. Why?" "Probably because you've trained with it more than anyone," Soyeon suggested. "The neurological pathways are stronger. The connection between soldier and weapon is deeper. It's not just about stress. It's about skill and practice reinforcing each other." Private Yoonji spoke up. "My family taught me that weapons are extensions of the warrior. That real mastery comes from making the weapon part of yourself. I always thought that was just philosophy." "Maybe it's more than philosophy," Doyun said. "Maybe there's real science behind old warrior traditions." Across the colony, human soldiers learned about their glowing bayonets. Some found it strange, some found it frightening, but all of them found it useful. When the Skrull attacked and the blades began to glow, the creatures died easier. The humans held their positions with fewer casualties. Commander Borum watched a recording of Sergeant Jiwon fighting with her glowing weapon. The Vraxian officer's expression was difficult to read. "This changes things," Borum said quietly. "How so?" Doyen asked. "The Council has sent new orders. They're evacuating the colony, abandoning Threshold 7 to the Skrull. They say it's too costly to defend." "What?" "We've been holding for 3 days. We can keep holding." "Against the warriors, yes. But scouts report a Skrull queen approaching. She commands the swarm. Where she goes, thousands follow. The Council estimates 10,000 more warriors will arrive within 2 days. Even with your glowing weapons, you cannot fight 10,000. Doyen felt cold. "How long until evacuation?" "Ships arrive in 6 hours. All personnel will withdraw. The colony will be destroyed to prevent Skrull from using our equipment. And if the Queen follows the ships, if the Skrull spread to other colonies, then we fight them there, with better preparation. The Council is already ordering all Coalition forces to study your bayonet phenomenon. They want to understand it. Maybe reproduce it. They want to copy what they called obsolete 3 months ago." "Yes." Borum looked embarrassed. "The Council does not apologize easily. But they are sending you this. She handed Doyen a data chip. Official commendation for your company. Recognition of your combat effectiveness. And a request. What request? They want Earth to establish a training program. To teach coalition soldiers close combat techniques. To share your knowledge of fighting when technology fails. Borum paused. They are asking you to help us remember what we forgot. Doyen thought about the council chamber. The laughter, the condescension. Now they wanted Earth's help. Now they wanted to learn from the primitive humans. He should feel satisfaction, victory, pride. Instead, he felt tired. I'll consider it, he said. But right now I have soldiers to evacuate. Minho appeared in the command center looking worried. Captain, I've been reviewing the Queen's approach vector. She's not heading for the colony. She's positioning herself to intercept the evacuation ships. She's smart, Doyen said. Kill the ships, trap us here, wear us down. The council says to delay evacuation until the Queen passes. Wait for a better window. How long? Maybe a day. Maybe more. Doyen looked at the tactical display. The Queen's position. The swarm gathering around her. 10,000 Skrull warriors ready to attack. An idea formed. A terrible, dangerous idea. What if we don't wait? He said slowly. Everyone stared at him. Captain? Borum asked carefully. What if we kill the Queen first? Minho said the swarm follows her. Without the Queen, they lose coordination. They scatter. That's true. But the Queen is protected by thousands of warriors. No force could fight through that many enemies. Doyen looked at his glowing bayonet. Maybe not any force, he said. But maybe us. The council called it madness. The aliens called it suicide. Captain Doyen called it necessary. 200 soldiers stood in the assembly area checking weapons one final time. 120 humans. 80 Vraxian volunteers who had watched the humans fight and wanted to learn their methods. Commander Borum stood among her own troops. A human-made bayonet awkwardly attached to her plasma rifle. Your technique is different from ours, she had said earlier. As human soldiers taught the basics of bayonet combat. We train for precision and distance. You train for chaos and survival. Because chaos is what happens in real combat, Sergeant G1 replied, demonstrating a parry and thrust. Your plasma rifles are perfect when everything goes according to plan. Our bayonets work when plans fall apart. Now those Vraxian soldiers stood ready. 2 hours of hasty training their only preparation. It wasn't enough. Everyone knew it. But they were out of time. Lieutenant Hana addressed the human troops. Her wounded arm was strapped tight, but she insisted on fighting. The Queen is 3 kilometers from here in the old mining complex. Between us and her, approximately 4,000 Skrull warriors. Our mission is simple. Get to the Queen. Kill her, survive. Private Yunji raised her hand. Ma'am, with respect, that's not simple at all. I know. But it's necessary. The council wants us to hide and wait for evacuation. But if we do that, the Queen blocks the ships. Then she brings 10,000 more warriors and we all die slowly instead of quickly. This way at least we control our fate. Corporal Taehyun checked his bayonet, the blade gleaming. My grandfather told me that a soldier's greatest weapon is not steel or technology. It's the decision to act when others freeze. We're acting. That gives us an advantage. Doyen stepped forward. He had spent the last hour planning the attack with Borum and Minho. The route was mapped. The strategy was simple. Hit hard, move fast, don't stop. It was a plan that would get people killed. But doing nothing would kill everyone. Listen up, Doyen said. We're going to do something the Skrull don't expect. We're going to charge them. Not carefully. Not tactically. We're going to run straight at the Queen with everything we have. Our glowing bayonets will disrupt the warriors around us. That gives us an opening. A small one. We exploit it. What if the glow doesn't work? Someone asked. It will. Dr. Soyun confirmed that Resonite responds to combat stress. And I guarantee you charging 4,000 enemies will create plenty of stress. A few nervous laughs. The key is we stay together. We don't scatter. We form a wedge, push through their lines, and drive for the Queen. Vraxian soldiers, you stay in the center. Use your plasma rifles to clear the path. Humans, we protect the flanks with bayonets. Questions? Silence. Everyone understood. This was a suicide mission, but it was a suicide mission with a purpose. One more thing, Doyen said quietly. The galaxy has spent 3 months telling us we're obsolete. That our weapons are primitive. That we have nothing valuable to offer. Today we prove them wrong. Not because we want glory or recognition, but because it's the right thing to do. Because soldiers protect others even when others don't appreciate it. That's what makes us different from the council and their committees. We don't wait for permission to do what's necessary. Sergeant G1 slammed her bayonet against her rifle stock, the ring of steel on steel echoing through the chamber. Around her, other soldiers did the same. A ritual, a promise, a challenge to death itself. Fixed bayonets. Doyen ordered, 200 blades locked into place. 200 soldiers prepared to charge an enemy that outnumbered them 20-1. Commander Borum approached Doyen privately. Captain, I want you to know. When this started, I believed the council. I thought Earth had nothing to teach us. I was wrong. Your soldiers have shown me that advancement isn't about technology. It's about the warrior's spirit. About adaptation and courage. Whatever happens today, I'm honored to fight beside you. The honor is mutual, Commander. One question. What happens if we fail? We won't fail. Because failure means everyone dies. So we'll succeed somehow. Borum smiled, showing her sharp teeth. Simple human logic. I like it. The 200 soldiers moved out, leaving the safety of the colony behind. They crossed the open ground toward the mining complex where the Queen waited. Skrull scouts spotted them immediately. The chittering alarm spread through the swarm. Here they come, Hana said. The Skrull warriors poured out of the complex like a black tide, hundreds of them. Blade limbs raised, screaming their rage. The ground shook with their approach. Steady, Doyen commanded. Hold formation. Wait for my signal. The distance closed. 500 meters. 400. 300. Now charge! 200 soldiers ran forward, screaming their own battle cry. The Vraxian troops fired plasma bolts, each shot taking down a Skrull warrior. But the humans didn't fire, not yet. They saved their ammunition for close range, where every bullet counted. The two forces collided with devastating impact. Doyen's bayonet began to glow immediately, the blue light flaring bright as his heart pounded and adrenaline flooded his system. Around him, other blades lit up, 30 glowing weapons, 40, 50. The light was blinding. The Skrull warriors recoiled from the glow, their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. Doyen thrust his blade into one creature, twisted, pulled free, moved to the next. Fire, stab, shoot, advance. The rhythm of combat, older than civilization, as natural as breathing. Private Yunji fought beside him, her bayonet glowing brighter than most. She moved like a dancer, every step fluid, every strike precise. Her martial arts training translated perfectly to combat. A Skrull lunged at her. She sidestepped, parried with her rifle, and drove her blade through its head in one smooth motion. Corporal Taehyun anchored the right flank, his bayonet work steady and reliable. He didn't have Yunji's grace, but he had determination. Each thrust was powerful, each movement economical. His grandfather would have been proud. Sergeant Jiwon led a team of 10, pushing through the thickest part of the enemy formation. Her blade glowed like a torch, and she wielded it like she was born for this moment. Every training hour, every practice drill, every lesson learned was put to use. She was a master of her weapon, and the Skrull learned that painfully. The wedge formation pushed deeper into enemy territory. The Vraxian soldiers in the center provided covering fire while humans protected the flanks. It was working. Slowly, painfully, but working. Then they reached the Queen's inner guard. These warriors were bigger, stronger, faster than the others. Elite troops bred specifically to protect their monarch. They hit the formation like a hammer. The left flank buckled. 3 human soldiers went down. The wedge started to collapse. Hold! Doyen shouted. Hold the line! But the pressure was too great. They were being pushed back. Lieutenant Hana saw the danger. Without hesitation, she charged forward alone, her glowing bayonet leading the way. She hit the elite warriors with everything she had. Her wounded arm forgotten, she bought the formation 10 seconds to reform. 10 seconds that cost her life. A blade limb caught her in the chest. She fell. Hana. Doyen tried to reach her, but the press of bodies was too thick. Keep going. She gasped, blood on her lips. Get the Queen! Rage flooded through Doyen. Cold, focused rage. His bayonet flared brighter, the blue glow intensifying to almost white. He pushed forward, cutting through elite warriors like they were nothing. Other soldiers followed, their own weapons blazing with light. The formation reformed, stronger than before. Driven by grief and determination, they broke through the inner guard. The Queen stood before them, 15 feet of armored horror. She was massive, ancient, powerful. Around her, the last 50 elite warriors formed a wall of blades. One final push, Doyen said. For Hana, for everyone we've lost, for Earth and the Coalition, for the people who called us obsolete. Show them what humans can do. The 200 soldiers charged. The elite warriors met them head-on. The fighting was brutal beyond description. Bodies fell on both sides. Blood covered the ground, the air filled with screams and the clash of steel on chitin, but the glowing bayonets carved a path through the defenders. The resonite field disrupted the Skrull coordination, and human ferocity did the rest. Doyen reached the Queen. Sergeant Jiwan and Private Yunji were with him, their bayonets burning bright. Commander Borum fired her plasma rifle point-blank into the Queen's armor, creating an opening. "Now," Doyen shouted. 3 glowing bayonets thrust forward as one, driving deep into the Queen's neural core. She shrieked, a sound that shook the walls. Every Skrull warrior in the complex froze, their connection to her mind severing. The Queen fell. Her death released a pheromone pulse that swept across the battlefield. The Skrull warriors began to scatter, their coordination broken, their purpose lost. Without the Queen's guidance, they were just animals. Dangerous still, but no longer an organized threat. The 200 soldiers collapsed where they stood, exhausted beyond measure. Of the 120 humans who started the charge, 73 remained combat effective. The Vraxian troops fared worse, only 40 still standing. But they had won. Captain Doyen knelt beside Lieutenant Hana's body, recovered by soldiers after the battle. She had been with him from the beginning. Through the Council's mockery, through the desperate defense, through everything. "We did it," he told her quietly. "We proved them wrong." 3 days later, the evacuation ships arrived to find the colony secure and the Skrull threat eliminated. The Galactic Council sent representatives to investigate. They found human soldiers teaching bayonet techniques to alien troops. They found obsolete weapons that glowed with mysterious light. They found everything they believed impossible. The Council's official apology was broadcasted across the Coalition. Earth's military doctrine was adopted for close-quarters combat training. The demand for Earth-made steel weapons exceeded supply within weeks. Doyen was promoted to Major and given command of the new Human Shock Infantry Division, a mixed-species unit trained in Earth's combat methods. Sergeant Jiwan became the chief instructor for bayonet combat across the Coalition. Private Yunji wrote the manual that would train the next generation of close-quarters fighters. 6 months after the battle, Doyen stood in a weapon-forging facility on Earth. Alien representatives from a dozen species watched as a master smith shaped steel into bayonets. The metal contained trace amounts of resonite, carefully preserved according to traditional methods. "They called these obsolete," Doyen said to the assembled group, holding up a finished blade. They were wrong. A weapon is only as obsolete as the warrior who wields it. Earth soldiers proved that. Not because our technology is better, but because we never forgot that war is won by the person behind the weapon, not the weapon itself. He attached the bayonet to a rifle, the simple click of metal on metal satisfying and final. The galaxy spent millions of years advancing, building better weapons, better armor, better everything. But in all that advancement, they forgot something. They forgot that the simplest tools in the hands of a determined warrior can change the course of history. They forgot that sometimes old wisdom is more valuable than new technology. They forgot that obsolete is just another word for proven. The aliens listened in respectful silence. They had learned their lesson the hard way. Doyen looked at the glowing blade in his hands, remembering the battle, remembering the soldiers who fell, remembering Lieutenant Hana's sacrifice. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy," he said. "Not just the weapons, not just the techniques, but the reminder that advancement without wisdom is hollow, that new doesn't always mean better, that sometimes the old ways survive because they work, and they work because they're built on something technology can never replace, the human spirit. The warrior's will, the refusal to give up, even when everyone says your weapons are obsolete." He smiled, a warrior's smile, tested in battle and proven in blood, especially when they say your weapons are obsolete.